All right, folks. Well, we have a pretty good number, so I am going to get the meeting started. You can choose to stay on camera off. Um, I'd ask you to keep your mic off. We'll use the chat or raise your hand. I'm going to try to manage that as best I can. Um, but we'll start with some logistics. So welcome to Thursday, February 20th. My name is Sue Figler. I am proud to be the Professional Development Program Chair for AFP-NEO. And also today we have on the call Marian Drake. She is our president. So Marian, would you like to say anything this morning or this afternoon?
Sure. I just wanted to say good afternoon and welcome to today's AFP of Northeast Ohio Professional Development Session. I'm really glad you could all join us for this lunch and learn on such a chilly, cold day. It's always great to come together to learn, connect, and grow in our work. I'm looking forward to a great discussion, and thank you, Sue Figler and the Professional Development Committee for putting together this great lunch and learn.
Awesome. Thanks, Marian. Again, I am not the technology aficionado, but I know with this many people in the room, if you put your teams on speaker mode, it'll help you make sure that once we're having a conversation with Joni and Sandra, that you'll be able to see them, because the good news is we have a lot of people in this meeting today. And I may use the word Zoom, just meaning Teams. Well, let's get started here. I would like to introduce, well, first of all, I want to thank all 46 of our attendees that are starting to show up. In this registration, we have some new members. So I want to just give a shout out if they're on here. We want to welcome Andrew Kluge. I hope I'm saying these names correctly. Sarah Zarcone, Mira Cardenas, Tracy Buckner, and Anita Martukovich. We really want to welcome you guys. And once we get in person, we'll put some faces to names and, give you a warmer welcome than a shout out on Teams. But we wanted to thank you for joining us here today. We are super excited to have two really leading resources in Northeast Ohio to help us have a great conversation here today. And you're stuck with me as your moderator, so you'll be hearing my voice, but hopefully less of me shortly. I wanted to first introduce Joni Fitch. Jody, if you could just kind of give a wave, just so we know that this is Joni. Joni is the Director of Community Affairs and Engagement for the Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company. She's been there since 2015, and she's responsible for establishing the strategic direction of Goodyear's philanthropy, their community engagement, and that includes their volunteerism. She makes sure these programs align with the company's objectives and also builds Goodyear's reputation as a good corporate citizen with positive outcomes. She also directs the charity's charitable contribution, including the Goodyear Foundation. She works collaboratively, obviously, to build strong relationships with the Goodyear community in our area. Prior to Goodyear, Joni was with Akron Children's Hospital Foundation. She was focused on grassroots fundraising and community development for that pediatric hospital. And early on in her career, Joni worked for Joann's Stores, where she managed corporate and community events and the Greater East Ohio Area Alzheimer's Association in development. So again, Joni brings to us a wide variety, but also a strong voice in our community representing Goodyear. So thanks, Joni, for being here today. We're really excited to have a conversation with you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. We're excited. Sandra, if you could give a wave or say something, because that'll bring you top of mind for speaker view.
Hello, everyone.
All right. Sandra, we're really excited to have you as well. Sandra is the Executive Vice President of Corporate Communications and Strategic Planning for the Davey Tree Expert Company. She joined Davey in '86 when she was 3 years old. And she's worked as a video and communications coordinator, company spokesperson, manager of corporate communications and marketing, and vice president of corporate communications and strategic planning. So I would say that Davey is in her DNA. In 2024, she was promoted to her current role, and she's a member of their senior leadership team, and it obviously looks like it's well-deserved. Sandra's professional awards and certificates include a variety from the International Association of Business Communicators, Strategic Communication Management Professional, and other certifications. She's been recognized as a woman of distinction by our local Girl Scouts of Northeast Ohio, Athena Akron Leadership, and a 2024 Women in Green Industry honoree and Crain's Cleveland Business Notable Leader in Communications in 24. She's a membership of Leadership Cleveland class of 25 and serves on a variety of boards and leadership, obviously in our area. So again, I think we have two real homegrown leaders in our community that have strong ties, and they're representing some great organizations. So we're really pleased to have you here today.
It's great to be here.
So to all of our folks out there in Teams land, we're going to do this as a prompt between Sandra and Joni. I know that Marion is going to help me watch for raised hands, so she'll shout in, or if you want to put something in the chat. But this is not meant to be a Ferris Bueller conversation where we're just listening. Any questions that you have, we know that our panelists today are happy to address some of the things that come to mind as we discuss. So again, I think we'll go from there. In no particular order, ladies, so this is like Jeopardy, right? Whoever hits the button first. Really, the reason we brought this program today, Stewardship, the care and feeding of your sponsors, is to really know how we as nonprofit professionals either are hitting the mark or maybe are off the mark in how we communicate and get back to you, because sometimes we're really good at asking, but not showing up until that second time of ask. We're spread thin, but we also want to know what is the best way, and that changes with organizations and the type of interaction that we have. So that's kind of the premise for our conversation today. So to both of you, when you're choosing a nonprofit partner from your organization, whether a nonprofit approaches your organization or you're seeking out a potential partner for a project, what are you looking for in a nonprofit partner?
Go ahead, Sandy.
Yeah.
Well, first I want to thank everyone for taking the time to be here today. Certainly appreciate being here with you, and certainly appreciate the work that is done in Northeast Ohio with so many good causes. I think this question probably hits the heart of what Joni and I deal with on a daily basis. There is just so many different good causes that our organizations can't support all of those. And so that really is the challenge. So how do we choose? Well, I think we start with our values. So it starts with the organization values, as the values of your organization in alignment with our values. Well, that usually is the case because there's very similarity between all organizations and their values. But then we go deeper into that. We are an employee-owned company in a service industry. We've been based in Northeast Ohio since 1880. We've been employee-owned since 1979. So we have a couple unique value propositions in that we are employee owned. So our owners are our employees. And so we often support things that are very important to our ownership group, which is our leadership group, which is our employee group. We also focus on volunteerism. So our Davy Green Leaders program is a good entry point. So if an employee is a volunteer within your organization, that might help you come to the top. And then I think we look a lot at stability. How long has the organization been in effect in the community? What's the track record? What's the reputation? Again, shared values and purpose. And what type of results have been achieved in the community by the organization. So that's kind of some of the things that we start with. So on to you, Joni.
Yeah, and thanks, Sandy. And I think very similar to what Sandy said, we have very specific focus areas for our philanthropic, we call them priority areas of safe, smart, and sustainable. So we're going to start there. And, does this organization serve a need within those specific areas that we serve? We're also going to look at, are we the right partner to serve that challenge or that need in the community? And we sometimes aren't. And that's something that we have conversations with people and partners that come to us and say, they come to us with a challenge or they want us to fund something that we sometimes have to have a honest conversation to say, I just don't think Goodyear
there's the right fit for this reason or another. So that's sometimes where we start as well. But then all the other things that Sandy said, we look at values. At the end of the day, I need to make sure that that's a good fit for Goodyear. And so it needs to align to my pillars, and it needs to align to, the fact that we solve this problem together, but then also does it align to my values as a company? And then Sandy already talked about this a little bit, but engaging our employees, that's important to us as well as a company. How do we meaningfully engage our employees in this process? I know that my colleagues are one of our best assets at Goodyear. So I know I'm a little biased in that, but I do believe that. So how do I engage them meaningfully in this project? And also Sandy talked about this a little bit as well, around the organizational capacity and how can this organization support this, continue to find the resources to execute on it, is the leadership supportive of it? So that's also something that we're looking at, all from kind of those early stages of a conversation.
And just coming,
cheer for your home team.
Oh,
So good
sorry,
for you.
Sue.
No.
Just coming back in here, specifically what I didn't say is, we tend to focus on trees and the environment because that's the core roots of our business. So that's where it starts for us first. I think some of the other things that we look at are, frankly, the administrative percentage, if this is an ask for funding, how much of that is going towards the cause and how much of that is going towards organizational administration, certainly understanding that all organizations need to run. But we're not a foundation. We are, we're a company with a mission, and frankly, we've got changing conditions, as we all do, every single day. So what we may have done 2 or 3 years ago might be different as the organization evolves. What we're currently working.
Oops.
Oops, it looks like somewhere in there
Yeah,
I got muted.
Okay.
I just saw the pop-up that I got muted.
Yeah,
So
same.
I think I was talking about change, so there's a lot of changing conditions that we're all faced with right now. And so that definitely changes the priorities of the organization. But just from a standpoint of understanding the volume, again, there's just so many good causes. We operate like Goodyear in a lot of different locations. We're based here in Northeast Ohio. We operate across the United States and Canada. We have clients in all those locations. We have employees in those locations. We have to balance what we do at home in our home base with what we do in other locations. And sometimes, our clients shift, our priorities shift. Sometimes governmental conditions cause us to shift in terms of focus, and we may be in a circumstance where we've got less money available for philanthropic work because we need to have more money put into government compliance. So those are just some of the things I think that we are faced with.
You talked about aligning with pillars. This wasn't something that's on the question, the prompts, but it came up in my mind as you ladies were speaking. Before we're reaching out for that specific ask, right? As a nonprofit, we'd like you to fund X or be our sponsor for X. What are some of the best ways that we can start that conversation with you to say, hey, do we align, or let you know a little bit more about our organizations or learn a little bit more about you, because it's about alignment and timing and understanding those shifting priorities. You guys are both busy ladies, so are your teams. You don't have time to have coffee with each and every one of us, but are there some strategies that might work so that we're kind of laying the groundwork in a thoughtful and respectful way with you guys?
I think for me, it's a lot of doing, it's doing homework, I think, and understanding, certainly I would never understand a community partner I would never expect a community partner to understand Goodyear. But Sandy hit on a lot of the same things that Goodyear, we're an international company in 23-ish countries, 70,000 employees, and we have a huge footprint. And so our community strategy, those priority areas are same, but we call it global. So it's a global strategy with local implementation. So the social issues are different. And I'll say that, I'm the only director of community engagement or community affairs and engagement across our company. So, I'm having conversations that are on a different, in different areas. And so I think that sometimes I think do a little bit of homework and do some of that for before coming, because I do think, Sue, a lot of times the first ask is just to get the meeting, and then we get in the meeting, and sometimes I can, if I do get the time and we do it, it's not super close to our pillars, and so for me the stuff's out there. So for me it's look online, really find the fit that's meaningful, and look at how we engage and really have that conversation with us. And I think that a lot of times it's really, I'm a relationships person, and that's what I was really gonna lean on today. If there's any message that I can share today, it's that I'm a relationships person, and that is absolutely how I fund. If I work on relationships, and we measure on relationships, I need to understand, who you are, how your organization runs, and that's all relationships, whether it's in personal or whether it's with your organization. And I think it's really understanding, how we operate and what those challenges are, and what the challenges are that, Sandy talked about a couple of those different things and how things change over time. And, I can think of a couple partners right now who, things have changed for us in the last couple of years. We're in the middle of a business transformation right now. And I've got some partners that have been really watching along with us and have been understanding, and they're excited about trying to learn and be a part of that process with us, and be really understanding. And I've got some that are just not, and not been so partner-like through some of those things. And so I can tell you that at the end of the day, as the transformation and things change every single day, the ones that are along with us are the ones that are going to stay with us, and the ones that I'm going to continue to do things with. So I think that for me, when you ask that question of how to make that work, it's really doing your homework and really coming to me with something that really is a start of a conversation in a relationship, and also starting with a need that could fit with us, and a need that is a need. I think that's the other piece, is sometimes I feel like I'm looking at a need that's made up for me. And I don't know, Sandy, I assume you feel the same way, but I don't want a need that's been made up for me. I want a need in the community. And if we have a relationship, I probably will hear about it, or you'll tell me about something that happened, and I might be able to solve that in a way. And I call myself a puzzle piece collector. So I hear bits and pieces of information, and I don't throw them away, but I also don't force them into place. And so it might be a few years from now where I'll pick up that puzzle piece and say, hey, I can place this now because I'm in a different situation than I was when I first heard about it, or picked up that puzzle piece. But that's where that patience comes in a little bit too, and that relationship building. So, and that's a long way to answer your question, but that's
No,
kind
but
of
I
my
think
thoughts.
well said. Well said. Sandra, did you have anything to add to that?
I think that was a great answer. And I'm a relationship person too, from a standpoint of connectivity in the community, the involvement and awareness of what's going on. But I think the reality that we're both probably talking about is there's hundreds of requests that come in every day. So as much as I would like to be able to have coffee with somebody and talk about what we might do together, that's not particularly realistic. The amount of time that I spend with our manager of community engagement on the requests that have come in, and depending on how many other things that we have going on, that time sometimes gets condensed. So I think doing your homework is a core requirement. I think being awareness of the organization and what you're pitching is as a core requirement. Not expecting that because we've done something else that we will do something with you, and not taking it personally if we don't, because it's really not personal. The reality of a situation is we can't support everything. And again, going back to like those changing priorities, sometimes as our organization has grown, things have changed. We've got diversified divisions. We might be getting involved in supporting organizations, because for us, it's not just on the community side. It is on the sponsorship side, on the people expertise side, in terms of people doing presentations. It's support for industry conferences and industry events. It's support on the workforce side. That all funnels through the same place. So I think definitely the way you differentiate yourself is creatively, but but to Joni's point, something that is on point with the organization, because if it's too outside the box, or if we have to spend too much time trying to figure out how we would get this fit or how to execute it, our teams just do not have time for any other things on their list of trying to figure out how to implement.
Mhm.
Awesome.
In communication, I think one more thing to add is, and I think Sandy, being a communications professional as well, would probably agree with me, is that concise and like one attachment. If you're going to attach, if you're going to send me an email, one attachment, because I think a lot of times I'll get like a lot of stuff, and you kind of reminded me of it, Sandy, when you were saying like how, if I have to spend a lot of time to figure out how to implement, if I have to spend a lot of time to figure out what the project is, and I have to open up and I know that sounds really bad, and I'm sorry if it does, but we're all busy. You all have huge inboxes, I'm sure, just like I do. And if I have to like open up this, and I have to open up this, and I have to figure out this, and I have to figure out that, I'm probably not, it is probably just keeps going down in my inbox, because I know I have to take the time to do it. And again, it's not me trying to be, I mean, if I could fund all of you, I would. I mean, that's just not the reality I'm in. But it's not personal. It's just the reality of how we all are working today. And and I'm sure you all have the similar inboxes. And I'm sure you all have somebody that emails you lots of things like that. And you're like, oh, I have to, and it just keeps going down your inbox. And you're like, I need to get to that. So just another thing to think about as you're trying to get in someone's inbox or get in front of somebody. It's clear, concise, and quick.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I'm right on Joni on that, because the other thing I would add is just having some consideration for what you are actually sending. Sometimes those links aren't able to be accessed as well on a mobile device, and I spend a lot of time traveling, so if I start to try to do that while I'm on a plane and I can't get it, you may be so far buried in my inbox, I lose track of it, and not intentionally. And then the flip side of that is we have such volume that those large meg attachments of videos that aren't compressed, or PowerPoint decks that aren't compressed. I mean, so that also creates another problem, because I'm constantly on the bad list of our IT department and how close I am to the edge of the internet.
That's pretty good. So you'll be the reason if we glitch, right? We'll say.
Most likely, so that's the case. Well, I'm just going to blame it on the proposals I received from yesterday. Well-intentioned, I'm sure, but yeah, help us help you.
Marion's monitoring our chat box, so she's going to raise her hand when she sees a question. Marion, I'm going to toss it over to you.
Sure. So this is from Susan Costco. How do you make decisions around depth of involvement with a nonprofit versus spreading the wealth?
Susan, are you talking about like long-standing, like kind of ongoing relationships, or like a larger partnership?
Sometimes organizations are, and you are very generous as an organization. You provide, professional development, you do so much for those nonprofits you work with. And I know sometimes organizations who aren't like in that umbrella are like, how do we get some of that? Like, we don't need it all, but how do we get some of that?
Yeah.
And I just wonder, I know, it must be a really tough balance between like really supporting those nonprofits you choose to support, but then like saying no to fewer people. So.
Yeah, so it's a hard balance. I think for me, it's we a few, gosh, probably right before I started, actually, so over a decade ago, we had a conversation around going deeper on fewer. And I'm not very good at it, so I do end up doing a little bit more, but that was because we started to do a little more project based. And so we do have some specific projects that we're trying to move on, and trying to make it some change there. So I think it just, for us, it was, how do we move the needle? And we felt like we were spread too thin with kind of like more like peanut butter. My former CEO used to call it the peanut butter effect. We were spread too thin. And the challenge was, how do we move the needle? And we knew we needed to say, okay, hang on, we got to really focus on a couple of things. Like I said, Susan, I'm not always so great at it. I do end up kind of trying to do too much, probably sometimes, but how do I make the decisions on it? I think for now we are sort of in a place where we've moved a little bit and we're slow. We're not the foundation or the corporation. We do fund out of both, but we're and have several, but we're not the place that's going to have funding cycles. That's just not where we are today. We really are program focused right now. So I think until we get to unless our situation changes, this is kind of where we're going to be for the time being. So I don't know if that's a good answer,
Thanks.
but
Yeah, no, that is. I know it's a really tough question, so I appreciate that.
That was a great question. Just to add to that, I think for us too, so we're on a calendar year for our budgets.
Good
And
question.
so right now we are what feels like halfway through 2025, and it's not really halfway, but that's what it feels like in terms of, so just in terms of like how does our year go? So the fall is the time where we start planning for the next year. The November timeframe is our annual planning meeting, and we're focused on sharing results that have been achieved from the previous months. And then we flip, because I also have responsibility for our strategic plan. So then we flip into strategic plan reset for the next year. Once we hit January, there's a lot of great things that come into my inbox, but the event is, let's say, I get it on January 15th and the event is February 5th. That doesn't work. Here's why. One, there's no time for both of us to activate this, particularly if it's event-based and I've got to figure out how to fill a table, or we've got some of the benefits that the ad, the programmatic part, share a speaker. So we are really focused around the year before, kind of knowing what's on our horizon and then making sure that we've got in our planning process in all aspects, volunteers, community, marketing, legal review, if there's some kind of contractual thing that needs to be done. We're very focused on teeing that up and having enough time. Unfortunately, we aren't able to do things like in an agile fashion. And I see that's where a lot of organizations, just because you are all spread so thin, that's where a lot of organizations come into us with something that might be a good idea, but we haven't had enough lead time. So that's another thing that I would probably add there is the budget process. Also, we also review things through a committee process. So I'm not the sole decision maker. And so, we need enough time to tee that up through our review process. So we've got some discretionary spend. So we probably do spread it around a little bit. We have some discretionary spend, spreading it around a little bit. And then we've got programmatic things like Joni talks about. And those we really want to be able to incorporate into whatever we have going on. So this year is our 105th anniversary of an organization. Last year was our 45th year of employee ownership. We're opening our Seed Campus project, where we purchased an old golf course and we're really investing in workforce training, research, and whatnot. And so right now, our big investment is getting that up and running and then figuring out how that can be a shared resource for green education throughout Northeast Ohio and beyond. We've already got a number of international events that we're going to be hosting there. So that's a great example, I think, for us of how it's changed, maybe where we were doing some like a potpourri of or smorgasbord of community things, and now we're kind of doubling down on green industry education and research.
Wow, those are great answers. And thanks, for bringing up the budget, those type of things. I mean, that's the reality at the end of the day. And so what I'm hearing is do your homework and longer runway in front of the project, just kind of at the gate. For our attendees, Marion or I will give you a thumbs up if we make sure that we see you in the chat. But Marion, I'm not going to get to my questions, which is awesome because we've got 2 more questions. So I'll toss it over to you, Marion, for the next.
Sure. So Alice Jennings asks, for an organization serving the state of Ohio, who aligns with your organization's values? What advice do you have for approaching and partnering with you?
I guess I'll start. I would say get in early. So by September of the previous year is when we need to hear something from you. And I think what we would want to hear from you is, how does your cause fit our organization? Sometimes that does take a conversation to figure that out, but the more specific the pitch, the better. And then there's just some things that fit the values, but they don't fit trees and the environment focus. And so that's probably how it would change for us.
Yeah, and I just put an email address in there. So And I'd say the timing thing is really the better as well. But I think for us starting the conversation for our email, I will also say, just for right now, we are still in the middle of a business transformation. We are in the second year of that. We said that it would be 2 years as of right now. That's the plan. So I'm not really doing a whole lot of new conversations. So I would say I would not send something till the end of this year. If is my advice, and then that's what I would do, is send an email to us and make a good proposal, and we'll go from there. We do have an online application. It is closed right now due to our business transformation. So it may open up at some point, in which case we will actually direct people to it again and get it back on our website. But for right now, that email address can easily be used at any time.
Just one follow-up to that, lady. So like Joni, in your situation where, you're kind of on pause, you're maintaining what you're doing. Is there any value to someone just giving you hey, just thought we'd like to keep you in the loop and sending it to that community engagement?
Absolutely.
We don't want to fill your inbox. So I don't, if I'm that person, I don't want to be that one, like, oh God, there's Figler again. But,
no,
if it's thoughtful.
I would never do that. You can send me,
you
send
never
me notes
know.
I would love that. No, there is, because I will tell you, I do have someone who monitors and I can, but I do have somebody who monitors the box all the time, and we are looking at them. I think that people think that people think those emails, because there is an auto reply, and I think people think that it goes into Never Never Land, and it doesn't. They are looked at all the time, and I will tell you also the things that I'm looking at them. So she's reviewing them with me on a regular basis as well. So yeah, absolutely. That's the kind of stuff that I want to see. That's how I find out things. And I can kind of keep them on my radar. So certainly.
Awesome.
I would certainly agree with that. I think the challenge sometimes is that people send something and then send another follow-up and another follow-up and another follow-up. And sometimes it gets a little bit more aggressive as they come in. And again, it's not personal. It is just volume. And, for us, it's kind of one of the things that we do under the corporate communications umbrella, because we don't have the luxury organizationally of having it carved out to be able to be focused on that. I think too, sometimes people come to us with something that really belongs in a foundation, because we're not really a program funder. We tend to, quite honestly, advocates probably help. So if it's got tied to a workforce initiative that's tied to one of our key clients, if it's tied to something a lot of our employees are involved in, if it's tied to something that is furthering economic development in Northeast Ohio, and there's a strong alignment with moving the green industry forward. So I think whatever linkages there are there, that's not 100% of a silver bullet to say that'll solve it, but it puts you in the folder that is like, if we get a moment, if something else changes, if we continue to watch what's being said about you, what people are saying about you, how you transparently communicate what's going on with your organization, if you don't have a reliance on event-based funding. I mean, I think all those things are things where we're paying more attention because we want to. I know ultimately that's what we want to do. We want to help move things forward. We just can't, frankly, for me, independently or organizationally, we just can't help everybody.
Great. Those are great answers. Marion, you're up. I think you got another question.
We do. Jody Gildersleeve. He asks, how do you engage and collaborate with your employees regarding their values and potential partnerships?
So I'll start with this one because mine, I think, will be an easier answer. So I have over 70,000 employees at Goodyear. So we actually we can't make decisions on our nonprofit relationships based on their involvement in the community. So I think that's probably what you're asking, Jody. And you know, we definitely want to include our associates in the process. We have things like our Global Week of Volunteering. Our associates log their volunteer hours. We don't have a matching gift program. We just frankly can't do it with 70,000 employees. We just can't afford it. It's a lot of people. And so we can't, you know, we talked about round and round about supporting, we do support our associates on boards, but we can't, we don't want to take money from the grant program in order to do some of these things. So we don't actually, while we do support them and we want them to do these things, it's not tied to our funding. So I think that's the question you're asking. And if so, that's not something we do, but I think Sandy has a lot more experience in that. So I will let her talk about that.
Thanks, Joni. So we do it, the way we do it is kind of in reverse. So our Davy Green Leaders reporting is basically open to whatever organization somebody is involved in. And we don't set any criteria around this. So if it's a religious organization, if it's a PTA, if it's a coaching, if it's a green industry organization, whatever that person is passionate about is what we have them record in our Davy Green Leaders. We do look at that. And we also on the flip side, take a number of specific requests that frankly, right now we're a little challenged with, like that we have about 9 organizations that have asked us if we could supply board members. We'd love to do that, but I think here's part of the quandary with that. Sometimes the request is not clear in terms of the expectation of the board member in terms of personal contribution and organizational contribution. And I've found that with particularly some of our younger members of leadership, they're a little bit concerned because of their personal circumstances on being able to fulfill that individual contribution. Sometimes it's unclear. Sometimes the request comes in and says, no, there's not that case. But then the person gets on the board and they're expected to give or get funding. So I think as clear as that can be up front, the better it is success for success. But for us, it's really been based upon what we know people are involved in. We have a lot of organic involvement in a lot of organizations, and sometimes those people are the best champions. So we kind of encourage them to champion for those organizations. But I also find a lot of people want to keep their volunteer involvement separate from their day job. And so that's been kind of interesting as we've evolved, because we've had some people who we know have a lot of volunteer hours and they don't report them. Because I don't know, maybe they don't want people to know how much time they're spending on that. But they don't typically report them, because what they say is, I'm not doing it for the recognition. I'm doing it for the give back. I'm doing it because I was involved in that organization as a child, or I have a child that's involved in that organization, or I have a personal story tied to what the organization stands for. So that's kind of how it works for us.
Yeah, I think the board service thing, you nailed it, Sandy. And I'll add, like, I get asked a lot for board service, and I'm always happy to, you know, pass things along, but like, have a job description or something, because I get a lot of emails. It's like, we'd like to have somebody from Goodyear on the board, and I have to reply back and like ask for things of like, well, when are your meetings? And that, I can't tell you how many times that comes up, because I will tell you, like, if I can't even, this is just how corporate people are. I can't even say, their first question is going to be, well, when are the meetings? I mean, right, Sandy? I mean, their first question is going to be, when are the meetings? And
how long are they?
How long are they? Where are they?
Yep.
Because that a lot of us have regular meetings. We all do. I mean, you guys do too. It's not just a corporate thing, but so I think like those types of things, and then the financial, that's the other piece. And we run into the same thing where I'll even ask the question. I'll say, what's the financial? And then it'll come back where there is one. And we have the same things where people aren't comfortable, and then I'm helping people navigate that. So I think that is something that happens on our side a lot, and we're happy to do that as well, help navigate it, but just really be clear with what the ask is.
And I would add one more thing here, and I think it's probably true for Goodyear too. Joni, you can correct me if I overstate. You know, a lot of our leadership travels to the other areas where we operate for client events or for employee events. And so that is also another challenging piece in terms of, like, you know, if you have a board option that's by Zoom, maybe I can do that. But depending on the time of day that is, maybe I can't participate. And some organizations have pretty strict, like, you know, you must attend XYZ number of board meetings. And I get it, because you want to have good governance. But some flexibility into the realities of I think that's another changing reality, is that there's just not a whole lot of people who have time anymore, as much as they would like to attend lunch meetings, to attend dinner meetings, to attend breakfast meetings, to attend multiple Zooms or whatnot. And so I think just being realistic with that in the realities of today's business. Now, that said, there are certainly a lot of people in our organization that are passionate about causes and want to give back. So I don't want to make it sound like we're not, but
No.
I think it's just a balancing act.
Yeah, and this will be the third AFP time, like a session that I've been a part of where I've said this, that I get asked where they just nonprofits just want C-suite members, and C-suite members are not always going to be your best board member. I can find you a really good senior manager and a director that's going to give you a lot more time and a lot more energy. But I understand why you want the title. I get that. They're not going to be the decision maker anyway. For financial support, that's going to fall in my area. They might think they can influence, but anyway, I understand the why behind it, but the reality is, and I think Sandy just explained that, it's not that they don't want to be. It's travel. It's just that their jobs are really challenging to make some of those meetings work. And so I'll be honest with you. I'll look, and if I'll look to see what levels the other board members are in the organization sometimes, or I'll ask. And if it comes through as a C-suite, a lot of times I'll just reply back and say, I'm really sorry, but I don't think we've got somebody for you at this time, because we've got a lot of those, like I said, senior manager directors they're probably going to be a better fit. So
I would echo that too, because I think organizationally, we've been looking at that a lot, because I've got a number of these boards that have asked for people, and we just keep running into, we don't have an option. And so I think looking at managers, senior managers, directors, I mean, we organizationally talk about that as part of leadership development, next level transition. Because frankly, in my career, I've developed a lot of really good skills and learned a lot of things I shouldn't have done. Based off of my external board involvement, and then I've been able to apply that internally. So it's a great lab to be able to do that and also give back.
I know. I feel bad because I feel like I probably have a reputation because I've said it now 3 times, and I'm not trying to be rude or anything. I'm just trying to be realistic about it, because I still get the requests on a regular basis, and it's just a reality.
No, and I think oh, I'm sorry, Sandy. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you know what? I just want to jump back in here too, because I feel for you, Joni. You know what? I've watched your work, and I've watched the work of Goodyear, and like, you are my gold standard in terms of on the community side. It's not my core job, so I can kind of come in here. I feel like I'm an amateur talking here, but except for to you.
Likewise. No, likewise. I feel like you got the years on me of doing this. We've got this together.
All right, great.
No, I mean, we appreciate too. I mean, we're asking you guys for your time when you do this too. And I think, as the development people, sometimes we're being asked to try to facilitate some of those conversations, and we've got to send that message right up the food chain or laterally across the food chain too. Because someone's saying, well, hey, if you're able to, you need to get that C-suite person, and that we have to be able to communicate the landscape. So I think that sessions like this really help us say, look, it wasn't personal. They were talking to the community in this way. And, maybe there's some value in being able to say, look, I get the C-suite, but if there's a win-win for your organization, as Sandy said, that you're learning, your teammate, your employee is learning skills by interacting in the community, right, and we gain a board member, maybe there's a little bit of leverage there where you might say, hey, this is a win-win, because guess what? Hopefully we're all going to retire one day, right? So, those become your next generation leaders and influencers. So I certainly don't want to put words in your mouth, but that was kind of my takeaway.
Absolutely.
No, right on. And just to add to that, like, Goodyear's an international organization. We're in the United States and Canada. So frankly, our managers are the equivalent of some other organization's C-suite.
Yeah.
Just from a standpoint of their responsibilities. So don't overlook that. Now we have to be realistic there, because I think many of them have young families, and they're concerned about time commitment, and they're concerned about the obligation. But I think as clear and direct as we can be from the beginning, so that everybody can succeed. And then also understanding that everybody can't be necessarily on something forever. They're at a different point in their life. I mean, I'm at the point in my David career where I was looking at, prior to being promoted in January, I was looking at my last stage and being focused around giving back to the community and immerse myself in community boards. Probably too much, but I immersed myself in community boards. And so I'm in a circumstance now where I have some additional organizational responsibility at the same time. So I'm kind of looking and evaluating, okay, what's realistic and what do we transition and how long am I doing that and how does that work and preparing for the next generation. So there's a whole, it's a complicated process for sure.
Mhm.
You know, we're all people with, various seasons of our life at different stages. I know Marion has another question.
Sure. This is from Denise Kramer. How do we respectfully follow up with a possible funder without being overwhelming? It's difficult not hearing back either way. It would be helpful to know when a good time is to communicate or not at all. This said, we understand there's a lot of volume on your end and maybe can't reply at all.
That's a tough question.
It is. It is.
I've had some people write, if I don't hear back from you, I'll assume time is not right for you. And I know that's hard for some people because that assumes that we've read that, and I often have. I try to say something, but lately my email volume is such that it is impossible. Like, not to sound like a whiner, but my daily reality is I'm in meetings all day and then I'm trying to catch up with my email to make sure I haven't missed something critical.
Mhm.
Something critical is something that's focused around something that is core business objective. And,
Right.
So I will put into a folder the things I'd like to get back to, or frankly, assign them to somebody else on the team. But I have even realized that I need to be a little sensitive to that because when I look at their workloads, they have 14 people to follow up with. And so again, as specific as you can be in your initial ask, we, just like Goodyear, we took ours down. We used to have a link on our website and we took it down because the volume was just so overwhelming and we didn't have time to look at the proposals that really fit because there were so many that didn't even understand what our organization was. So I don't have a good answer to that, but I think.
Well, I think if I can jump in, Sandy, what I think the challenge for me is with some of the responses is, and some of the times why it takes me so long too, is that the ask is always for a meeting. And I understand why the ask is for a meeting. I totally get that. That's the intention, right? That's the next step in the process. But it is difficult because I don't have time to do that. Like I'm like, I mean, my calendar's back to back all day most days. And so I'm a lot of times trying to fit people in and, half hour, 15-minute slots all day. And I just, it's not realistic for me to take all the calls. So I think if the response is the expectation, I think it's you've got to figure out a way to write it in a way for me to be able to do that. So because I try to be super thoughtful. The around here everybody thinks that I'm like the nicest no, and internally, not necessarily externally, but internally they tell me all, because I have to say no to things internally all the time too. And they will, so I try to be really thoughtful about how I'll say, like, now it's just not a right time for a meeting. But I think it's the ask is always like, it's always that. So then I have to like really be thoughtful about, can we get, so then the follow-up emails are always like, can we get that call tomorrow? Can we get that call next week? Can we get that call? So I think it's like, and I saw in your email, Denise, of like, when is the right time? So I think it's kind of, if you could help a little bit with how the approach might actually help to get the response, at least for me, because I'm going through, to Sandy's point, at the end of the day, there might be 200 emails in my box and I have a half an hour to, before I'm trying to get out the door. And so I'm doing it from my phone, even in an elevator. So I think that's the type of thought, like, so it's something that we can quickly do that. But ultimately, we try. It's not, and that's just my box, not the community engagement box. I mean, the community engagement box is also pretty overwhelming in that. And I think it's the volume is just, is just really going to be high for an organization like ours. And that's, I tell new people when they come on and they're helping with my work. And I just have to always say, like, the volume is just going to be high. We're a company of the size that we are. And I feel, I like to, we're in Akron, of course, that's our headquarters. That's our, where we were founded. Akron's really important to us, but we're a global company. And sometimes I'm reminded of that every day when I open that box and I realize the reach and the scope of people that are reaching out because they have a store, or because they have, not even, sometimes it's a branded store, but it's just a store that sells our tires. So it's not even, it's like a shop that sells our tires. And they thought of us and they're reaching out. So I think it's just the sheer volume. Just understand it's not personal, and we do our best, but we just can't pause. There's not enough hours in the day to make a call. So
No, I think that makes sense. I mean, you guys are making me think too. I mean, we all think, okay, maybe I'm sending emails by 7 o'clock, or you're starting at 7 o'clock in the morning. But with you being international, it's probably like a hamster wheel, right? Because their time,
yeah.
you wake up to 3 times as much as you thought you did. So
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I have colleagues in other countries. I mean, my calls usually start between 7 and 7:30. And sometimes but like I have people working. And I came in this morning to IMs of things that were happening while we were, but yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I think that's definitely the reality, because I don't have the country spin, but I do have the time zones. And then I think our business has changed. So we have work around the clock. We have snow removal in the middle of the night. So, the inbox doesn't stop. And so the days of where we could catch up, it doesn't really exist. It's probably also not good for our mental health, but
True.
Marion, I think we're caught up on questions. I'm going to give these ladies an opportunity to kind of share something from there, because again, you guys kind of got the list of prompts, but we're going to move quickly because we're going to be respectful of everyone's time. One of the questions we posed to you was, what were some of the most successful or memorable ways that that you guys supported were shared with your organization? So in other words, you guys supported a project. What are some successes? Can you give us something you really liked about a partnership, about a project, kind of the whole life cycle, and wow, they did this, kind of like those nip and tucks, those best practices that you're talking about. Wow, if we could all learn to kind of be creative and make that personal to our own organization, these might be some tips, because we like to send people away with something workable, something that they can kind of take and chew on and make their own. I hope that makes sense.
I think it makes great sense. So I would just start with showing sincere appreciation. I mean, it seems like a given, but it kind of surprises me sometimes that there's no acknowledgement of whatever has been done. Sometimes it feels like there was an expectation versus a sincere appreciation. So I think, that's certainly a differentiator. Basics, handwritten notes are great. Form letters, probably another email in the box probably doesn't work. And then I think the main thing for us is just some kind of results summary we can share. I mean, again, being employee owned, we have an employee app. We have an employee publication that we've done since 1900s. We have town halls. We have, our social channels, and we love to be a part of the process. So we like to share those results, projects, tidbits through all of those channels. So, if we have something actionable that we can show together, that's really why we're doing it. And we know you need the funding, but we're doing it because we want to put credits in the reputation bank, and we want our employees to feel engaged. And so we know that when we do our employee experience surveys, that opportunity to contribute and give back in their communities is a key piece. And so that's what we're working on every day.
Excellent.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And I think, if something specific, and I don't know, Sue, if there's anyone from Akron Children's on this call. I don't, so somebody
can
can
raise your hand if you
wave
are.
at me.
People.
I don't think I didn't see anybody, but so we have a relationship with Akron Children's that I'll just talk with a little bit, called the Safe Mobility Project. And one of the things that I'll share that we do, I mean, deals with injury prevention. And one of the things I wanted to kind of get through today, I think, with that specific program is that, you know, it was born that we were giving car seats, you're paying for car seats before I got here. I came from children's. I think you mentioned that in the beginning.
Yep.
So I actually had to take a pause in the program because of conflict of interest. I work for a big corporation. I got a big law department, ethics, you know, all that. So I had to take a big pause from the program for 6 months, 8 months, something like that. So I couldn't be involved, but that's been a decade ago now. But so we created this program where we were funding them, and we said, you know, ultimately we were like, hey, is this serving the need? They were able to articulate it wasn't, and we kind of created this program called the Safe Mobility Project around injury prevention. And the couple things I'll share about this program and why it's successful has been, from a creative perspective, has been one, they tell us when things don't work. And that has been,
lost that. You
yeah,
know, yeah. Do we want to
yeah.
tell you that?
And that's been something that, don't waste the money. Tell us when things don't work. And this is where, you know, it's high. Obviously, it depends on how much the grant is and what it looks like. This is a pretty high dollar grant out of our foundation. And you know, they come to the table, and it's happened a few times. One time it was like, we need to brainstorm with you. Do you have a group of people we can help figure this out? So we kind of came up with solutions together. But a couple times it's been like, we tried this, it didn't work. We want to reevaluate. This is what we want to do now. This is we want to change the scope. And having that courage and then building that relationship to be able to pivot has been really key in that relationship. And it's helped us that openness of just being able to do that. So I think that's something that I for sure would encourage people to work towards doing that. And then the game has changed. So I think the other thing that they have done is really acknowledge the wins through the process. So you know, we can measure, you know, we're an outcomes focused. I want to know what the outcomes are. I want you to measure that and tell me what those are. And you need to tell me that the story is the outputs, if people say, oh, it's outcomes versus outputs. Well, I want to know the inputs, I want to know the outputs, and I want to know the outcomes, because I think it tells a story, right? And that's what I want to know. We used to have a final report that we required our grantees to complete. I got rid of that because I want you to tell me the way that you tell me. I want you to tell me what feels right to you. If is that a one pager, is that a infographic, is that a paragraph that is a story that you're telling me? Like, I want you to tell me the success of the program in the way that you do. And Children's has done this in different ways. It's logic models and all sorts of different things. But one of the things that they do is they tell me when it's a win. Like, well, we have all this data. I mean, again, it's a 10-year-old program, but they'll call out, when we meet, they'll call out like this was huge for us, and they'll tell me why. They'll say, you know, that we've been trying to do X for X number of years, and it hit us that this program could maybe help us get there, and this is how we did it, and this is how we worked, and we tried it, and it worked, you know. And so it gives me tidbits as we move forward in this program that I'm able to then utilize as we start to, you know, to Sandy's point earlier, I'm not making these decisions in a vacuum, but I'm also influencing those decisions, right? I'm the one that's bringing them to the table. And so it helps me tell that story in a way where, you know, that's not on the paper necessarily in the grant, but I'm able to say, like, these are some of the wins. I'm able to tell those story on our internal app and articles and things that we do to our associates. So I think like Children's really is a good example of that authentic, transparent relationship. So it's, yes, they're giving me the reporting. Yes, I understand they're a large, pretty sophisticated nonprofit that has a lot of resources, you know, has good resources to do those things. But it's more, what really sets them apart has been the transparent communication, the courage to say when I need to change how I do the funding, but then also the ability to say, like, let me tell you when these wins are, these little tidbits of a win that they're excited about as the practitioners of the program. And and not necessarily just what the outcomes are. But like, I am so excited that these magistrates listened to us when we told them a solution to this. You know, they came to us with this problem, and we realized the Safe Mobility Project could solve this problem, and we came up with this together. And this has been a 30-year-old problem or whatever. That's the
Wow.
kind of stuff that I think makes it a good partnership. So I don't know, Stu, if that's kind of where you were headed with that, but that's
Yeah, I mean, what kind of does that look like, right? We can talk all about it, but what does that look like in real world, right? In real life.
Right.
Um, we are at time. And again, I hate to cut that off, but good to have too many questions. I'm so excited about the participation from our group. We still have 40 people on, so that is huge. So I guess my takeaways are: do your homework, be authentic, have a long runway, and realize it's a relationship, and there's seasons of relationships, and it's about people. We all have different bandwidths, but just trying to make sure. I think the fact that you guys take the time out of your busy schedule to do something like this means a lot to us. And so if we can keep these numbers going, we really very much appreciate all that you bring to the table here. So, high five to you, and thanks for what you're doing. Members, I just want to share with you, don't forget, we have March and April meetings coming up. One of them is going to be about taking care of yourself so that you can do a good job in all that you are doing. We all say that, but we don't do it well, myself included. Another is going to be back to the conversation about direct mail. We live in the electronic world, but has that become, the new mailbox that used to be full, and then people went to messaging. I also want to share with you guys, don't forget, we are I don't know if you can see this. I keep freezing up. Uncharitable is our book club that we're going to do. That is on our website. We are going to have a great opportunity in the summer to actually see the movie in Wayne County at a new theater out there. So we're going to invite people to come out there. We want to get on the road. But again, Marian has shared about becoming a member. And again, Joni and Sandy, thank you so much. We really do appreciate your time. There's not much more I can say than that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the invite. Good luck, everyone.
Yep.
Great. Thanks a lot.